Hello everyone, welcome to another Unity video here with Mike, and I'm here with Dylan.
Hi.
And today we're going to take a look at the UTiled 0.6. It was worth a full decimal, a full tenth of a release point in this new feature. So I'm going to go ahead, it's time to make a new Unity project here and get going. We're going to call this UTiled 0.6 demo, and select that folder, and we're going to make sure we set our defaults for 2D. So the very first thing we have to do off the bat, we have to correct this one right here. He should be 100, 149, 237. That's much better. So we're set to 640 by 480 is going to be our render target. And for the main camera, now we covered this formula before. The formula is your height divided by 2, divided by your pixels to units mapping. And for this video, we're going to be using 100 for that. So we get a 2.4 is going to be our orthographic size on the camera. So we have our project set. Let's go ahead and save. Don't forget to do that. Otherwise, you're working unsaved with no scenes. And we have the basics in. So I have an example map here that, well, you know what? I'm going to show this in Explorer because sometimes the tiled maps don't show up. So here on my desktop, they don't show up in the importer. Let me just, oops, come on. There we go. Copy into my folder. And so now I have a TMX map here. This is similar to the one that we had before in the other UTiled 0.5 video. So this is it. And we can't do anything right now because we don't have UTiled. So UTiled you get by going to the website, bitbucket.org/binall/utiled. Overview just pops in there by default. And then you can come over here to the downloads, and we are working with 0.6. So you just download that Unity package, put it somewhere on your hard drive, and then in Unity, add that to your project through the import asset custom package, and then wherever you downloaded it to, import that in. It's going to bring in a bunch of scripts. Take a second to compile. And now we're rocking with UTiled, so now we can re-import the level. And we get our dialog that we're familiar with. We're going to come back and talk about this new option down here, pixels per unit, later. So get the map imported. And if my camera and everything is all set right, this is just going to look great. Maximize on play. There we go. Pixel perfect. There's a section out of our tile map. So let's talk a little bit about mesh collision. So last time we generated collision maps, and I'll go ahead and do that and update this guy so we can see what collision maps look like. And let's go to our platforms that have the collision mesh. Zoom in on the collision mesh. Kind of hard to see with the rocks also being rendered, so I'm going to uncheck that just so we can check off the clouds and the background. Just so we can see our, well, did I mess something up? Or is Unity just gonna give us the demo wins here? We do have a collision mesh, and it does render down here. There is the collision mesh. We have a mesh collider, and it is set to the collision mesh. So Unity's just going to give us a bit of the demos here and not render nice little green lines. And I have no idea why at the moment. I wish I could tell you. There we go. So, alright. There's our collision mesh. Oh, you know what? I think I might have just encountered a bug. I think the collision mesh did not render
by default
at the pixels per unit setting. I believed I had fixed that. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to double check. I'm going to download my old package. Makes great for live demos. I'm going to delete this Unity UTiled package here. I'm going to delete all the generated assets from my level. I'm going to delete this guy too. I'm going to get rid of hue. And then we're going to import package, the one I just downloaded. So it'll be in my downloads. There it is. Bring it all in. Re-import the level. We want the collision layer. And oh, that's not reassuring because I'm rendering and I'm not seeing it there. Okay, so well, at some point there'll be a patch. But the problem we wanted to highlight here on the collision mesh, when you generate it this way, is it is a 3D mesh that we have added. So you know what I can do? I can actually scale this guy by 100 in each direction. And then frame up on him and he will line up. Because now I've applied my pixels to units scale. He was generated at a 1:1 and now I've scaled him down. So the problem with this is there's a couple issues in here. One, the big one is not the one that you're probably just seeing with the slope tiles not lining up properly because they're squares in the collision mesh. The big problem really with this collision mesh is that it is 3D and it works in the Unity 3D physics system. And the 2D physics system cannot interact with the 3D physics system. So if you want to have 2D sprites collide with 3D objects, you have to have one or the other switch systems. You have to put 3D colliders on your 2D objects or 2D colliders on your 3D objects. And either way you go with that, it kind of gets a mess, and you got two physics systems to worry about now. And for doing a 2D game, and the goal of UTiled is to kind of stay 2D, use the 2D tools. We don't want this 3D collision mess. So what we added to Tiled is the support for the object layers. So I'm going to come in to the map in Tiled now. We'll add an object layer. We'll call it collision. Okay. And on this object layer now, I can use the Unity objects up here to draw some shapes. So I can draw a rectangle. I can draw a rectangle there. And I'll add one here and one here. One for each of these. And I can also add a polygon. Oops, that's not where I wanted to start it. Let's go ahead and get rid of that one. There we go. There we go. Draw a polygon. That will better represent the shape that I'm in. Now, I currently have Snap to Pixels on, but I could come in here and turn off the Snap to Grid. Sorry, not Snap to Pixels, but Snap to Grid. I can turn the Snap to Grid off, and now I can make these lines anywhere. So you really have a lot of power with this system in Tiled for laying out. Let me turn my Snap to Grid back on because I missed this guy. All right. So now that I saved this map with an object layer, I have the object layer. The object layer name is collision, and I will generate the prefabs with it. Drop them on here, and now you can see. I'll shut off well, we just go down to the collision layer. We can see this collision layer came in, and it's a much cleaner mesh, and also we have the diagonals, so we're covering those squares. So just take a second to look at how that imported and how those came in, because there's a bit of translation between like Unity system and Tiled.
There's some limitations that Unity can't support, basically.
Right, and there's some decisions I had to make, and so here's how I made them. So your squares will come in as 2D box colliders. The size of the box collider will remain 1, 1. But the transform will be set to the position and scale to make it match what you imported. The polygon objects will come in as polygon colliders. These have 4 vertices here. And they would just be, the vertices are a series of points. Unity will use this normally on a sprite to do some alpha mapping and make a polygon collider off of the alpha layer on a sprite. But I use this to give you a polygon 2D collider. And in here, there's a limit of 255 vertices. So if you have more than 255 points in your polygon, it will not import. That's not one where I've gone and exceeded the limitations and come up with a new system that'll split polygons into 2 or anything crazy. I'm going to go with the fact if you've got 255 points in a single polygon, maybe you can go back to Tiled and refactor that a bit.
Yeah.
Also, that seriously increases the amount of collision detection that has to be done, and checking all those vertices for a polygon.
In most cases, it's something you could break out.
The other types that you have here, that you can add in Tiled, this button here allows you to edit. I'm not excited. You have the ability to draw ellipses. Now, I'm in a snap to grid mode, so, well, there you go. I can draw an ellipse, and I will draw one there. You can hold down Shift when you draw to enforce a perfect circle. And you're going to want to do that, because Unity, we will re-import this one here. Unity does not support ellipses. So there's a circle collider, which is set much like the box collider. So let's see if I can find my circle. There it is. So they will come in and they will have their transforms and positions and scales set accordingly. And you can even see I am still setting the scale appropriately as it would be for an ellipse, but a circle collider is always a circle. So you kind of have access to that data of your ellipse here, that maybe if you really need ellipses for your engine, there's something you can work with here, maybe some custom scripts that you can do, but there's not a base ellipses collider in Unity that I can use. When you do this, your console log, you will get a warning that Unity does not support an ellipse, and it was imported as a circle for the objects that you brought across. All right. So I think that about wraps up the basics of what we're doing now. You kind of get your idea on. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of him. Oh no, wait, there's one more. I'm forgetting one. You almost let me skip it.
Sprites?
A sprite.
Okay.
So I'm going to grab my red tile, and you don't, when you're in Tiled, you don't actually get to see where you're going to click this guy. Oops. Like there's nothing showing up. Oh, that's the wrong sprite. There we go. The first time you click, so you kind of have to like click and then go back to move around. But so he's a sprite object, and I'm actually going to right click on him and give him a name, and we're going to call him Red Sun. Why not? He's the Red Sun. He's a special object. We can give him a type down here. How about I spell sun correctly? So let's say type, he's a star. He's the red sun. And he can even, we can even, all objects, the collision platforms, everything, they support this type, parameter and sun and attributes. And, let's just say state, he's pre-supernova. Whatever you need for your game. We covered this in the other video, so I'm not going to get too detailed with that. I just want to show you that when you generate the layer, with him, that he will come in, you can see him up there, he will come in, he's on my collision layer, there's his name, but he comes in as a Unity 2D sprite object. And he has a box collider on him by default, so he's ready for animation and physics, but he is an actual 2D sprite. I could even, if I wanted, add a rigid body to him, and I believe at this point he is good to go for collision detection. Yep, and he just landed. So this is a way that you might want to have for bringing in, monster types or things like that. You're probably, in any full game, you're going to add more information. When he comes over, he does get a UTiled property thing that has his object type. We covered in the last video how to pull this up in script, so go check out the UTiled 0.5 video to interact with these properties a little bit more that he brought over. And from that video, properties will also work on a layer. So on the layer, there is one thing that he will be affected by from the layer itself, the object layer. The sprite objects can be affected by the transparency setting. So just know that if you set a transparency setting in tiled for the layer, it will import that, and this allows you to adjust all of the children at the same time. Sorting layers and order in layer, etc., all that can be set globally as well for the layer. Alright, I think that pretty much covered the basics. We've shown our sprite objects and all that. I think
some major new features.
Major new features. I did say I wanted to loop back around and visit this pixel per unit setting and what we were doing and why we were doing it. So let me take a look here real quick. I want to see where my settings are in my physics world. So I'm at negative 9.8. He fell pretty quick though. He did do a pretty good fall speed. Let me turn off maximize on play. He seems okay. But we're gonna lose him real quick from our scene. And I got a prefab character I'm gonna bring in. Import package that I made for this demo. And we have another video up that you can check out on doing some of the, basically how we built this package. And this is Cop Guy, and while he's importing there, I'll just show you that he is an image that we grabbed from Open Game Art. And under Content 2D Hero is his name there on Open Game Art. So you can come here and download and use him. He is a Creative Commons licensed and GPL licensed, so he's a dual licensed artwork asset. Author Toka, so giving credit there. Okay. So let's just take Cop Guy and add him to our scene. I'm going to go ahead and put him on his own layer just to make sure we can see him. So he's sorted in the scene correctly. I'll move him up a little more. And let's just make sure he works okay. He's falling a little slow. But he is running. He's a little bit crazy. We're just using the Unity 2D physics system to animate him right now with a rigid body. May not be the way that you do a platformer. Gravity was slow there, so I can come over here and in my 2D system up gravity to about 30 seems to be a good value for 2D platforms. He's still a little slow. I'm not going to get into a whole lot of tweaking with him in that. I could also up his weight or his gravity scale, make him double gravity. There we go. But, of course, if I double gravity him, then walking up the slope is harder. But that is the advantage of... I'm saying but a lot here. That's the advantage of our collision layer and our platforms, is while we're running this guy, he will walk up the slope. So that is a collision object. He's a little floaty because we're using the physics system to do that. And plus, you know, hey, he also falls. Okay, so we didn't bring you in him to show you him. We brought him in to show you the pixels and the problem with the pixels per unit that we had in the first video. So if you recall in the first video, we set a hard-coded value of 1 pixel per unit so that it was easy to work with. And I'll go ahead and you can now set your pixel per unit when you generate the prefab here. Let's go ahead and get that out and drop our new prefab in that I generated at a 1-to-1 mapping. If I come to the cop guy, I also have to, on his sprite sheet, re-import him at a 1-to-1 layer. Okay, you notice everything's gotten massively huge because we need to come to our camera, and this is going to be 240 now because we went up by 100. Okay, and now we're back at basically where we were before. Oh, let me go ahead and get rid of the red sun. And I can go ahead and click on the frame. Just frame that up in the scene. So everything looks like it should be good. Okay? But this became the problem. He's really slow. I don't even know if you can tell that he's falling, but he is falling. Very, very slow. And when I try to move him, it's almost as if you can't tell that he's moving. So, you come over here and you say, hey, let's go adjust his movement factor. So there's his move speed, and I'll bump his move speed up to, say, 100. And we'll run it again. And now he kind of moves, but he's still not falling because I haven't fixed gravity. But that's still not fast enough. Let's bump him up to 1,000. So you might say that maybe I did make the change. Maybe something's wrong in my script. Maybe I typed in the number, but you can see it's 1,000 over here. He's running at 1,000 speed. The problem is that the Unity 2D physics system is based on Box 2D, I believe, library. And it's based on a maximum 100 meters per second is the cap of velocity. Because these physics equations, I guess, get wonky once you start taking them to extremes. So they just said, hey, 100 meters per second is what we're basing these physics off of. There's no setting, though, that you can say, well, 1 unit is not 1 meter anymore. 100 units is 1 meter in Unity exposed. So you're trapped in their pixel to unit mapping because the pixel to unit mapping affects the physics system. You can't scale them both. So for that reason, we went back out and decided that the best way for UTiled to handle this was to give you this setting here. And then when you generate the prefabs from there, it will go to all of the sprites used and set that accordingly when it imports those sprites. So it's at 100. If I come back and do something weird and say 57, then all the sprites used in the map will go to 57. We recommend that you leave this set at 100 because right now, as of Unity 4.3, the physics system is pretty much hard-coded to assume 100. We also have to fix this guy. And we have to fix the camera. And now we're back to, whoa, he is super fast. because
we didn't change the speed back.
We didn't change the speed back. 2's a good value. And he fell off the screen. I did something wrong. And I'm not going to bother going into it at the moment and figuring out what I did wrong.
I think when we were walking through this, we had the same problem, so...
Oh, you know, I don't know if I deleted and dropped on... That's what I didn't do. I had the wrong mesh on there. Yeah, so he's good. Takes a bit to walk up a hill. Probably not what you want in a 2D platformer, but it shows the purpose of having the object layers and how to use them. So if you have any comments, if you use the system, find any bugs, use one of the links to get to the system, or just leave us a note in the comments. And thank you guys for watching.